Hello traders, you're welcome back to the Forex Geek channel. If you are looking to sharpen your trading skills and learn strategies that really work, then you are in the right place, okay? In this video, we are going to be diving into one of the most powerful techniques in the game, and that is supply and demand scalping. Now, whether you are a beginner or an experienced trader, this strategy is a game changer for anyone who wants to make precise, calculated moves in the market, all right, in the Forex market. So you might want to grab your coffee and your notebook and let us get started. Now, before we jump in, do me a quick favor, smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel to grow and keeps us delivering top-notch trading content straight to you. Okay, now let us just talk about the basics first. All right, supply and demand zones are areas on a chart where price has historically shown strong reactions. All right, so basically a supply zone, right? A supply zone is where sellers have overpowered buyers. Okay, so basically they are areas of rejection, preventing price from going further upwards. All right, when you find a supply zone, they are usually areas of price rejection, preventing price from going further upwards. Okay, so those are areas that we call supply zones. Those zones tend to push price lower. Okay, so think of it as a ceiling, right? A ceiling where the market struggles to break through. Okay, so think of it as a ceiling where price struggles to break through. On the flip side, a demand zone is where buyers have stepped in, okay, causing price to bounce higher. So just like how supply zone is on top, demand zones are at the bottom. All right, demand zones are areas where the buyers overpower the sellers. Okay, the demand zones are where buyers have stepped in, right, causing price to bounce higher, like what we have around here. Okay, those are areas of rejection, preventing price from going further lower. Okay, so think of it like a floor, just like how in the case of a supply zone it's acting as a ceiling, right? So in the case of a demand zone, it's acting like a floor that is preventing price from going further lower. Okay, so that is the scenario that we had around here. Okay, now the key to scalping with supply and demand is identifying these zones accurately and timing your entries when price revisits these areas. Okay, and don't worry if this sounds a bit overwhelming. I'm going to break it all down step by step. Now, how do you identify supply and demand zones? Okay, how do you actually find these zones on your chart? So you have to start by looking for areas where price moved quickly away from that level, or from a level. For example, here we can see how we had, price moved quickly from here, and then here again we can see that we had, rejection, right? You can see how the price moved quickly. You can see how the price moved quickly. So we have a demand zone around here. All right, areas where you have price moving quickly from those areas. Okay, so those zones are important zones. They are key indicators of strong buying or selling pressure. All right. So, for example, if you see a big clean candlestick, for example, you find, so let's say you find, okay, I'm just going to let's just mark out this demand zone. So we have a demand zone around here, right? So assuming you find indicators of a strong buying or selling pressure, for example, a big clean candlestick followed by several others in the same direction like what we had here, right? That's a sign of a demand in action. That is in the case of going to the upside. But if it is found around a resistance zone, right? If you find such around a resistance zone, and coming down with series of candles following suit, we can identify that as a significant or a sign of a supply zone. Okay. Now, it is important to always mark those areas. Whenever you find a supply zone or a demand zone, it's important to mark those areas, okay? So that, for easy identification, all right? So you can use, a rectangle object, right? Just like this yellow rectangle you see here, you can just use that to map out the zone, right, on your chart, okay? Then as for your entries should actually be tight. All right, you should have tight entries, and set your stop loss even tighter. For scalping, because we're talking about scalping, right? So I recommend placing your stop loss just above the supply zone, right? That is, if it's a sell, just above the supply zone. But in the case of a buy, it's just going to be below the demand zone, okay, to minimize risk. And don't forget to define your exit strategy before entering the trade. All right, so whether that's a fixed risk to reward ratio or using trailing stops to lock in profits, okay, just ensure that you define your exit, okay, have an exit strategy even before entering the trade. Now, let's quickly cover some common pitfalls. All right, first, avoid trading every single zone you see. Not all zones are strong, and overtrading can be a killer. All right, so stick to zones with clear, sharp moves away from that level. All right, sharp moves away from that level. Stick to such zones. Okay. Now, second, be wary of false breakouts, because this can happen when price temporarily breaks through a zone before reversing. All right, so be watchful so that you will not end up trading against the trend. For example, if you have a false breakout away from a zone and you just quickly rushed to enter a trade in the direction of the breakout, you end up losing money. That is the reason why it's always important to confirm your breakouts. One of the ways to do that is ensure that a retest of that breakout point has happened before you enter in the direction of the breakout. Okay. Now, it is important to always manage your emotions. All right, scalping can be fast-paced and it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment. Now, stick to your trading plan and don't chase trades that don't meet your criteria. Okay, you should always have a checklist. You should always have some specific criteria that need to show up in the market before you go ahead to enter a trade. All right, so do not chase trades. Ensure that your criteria has showed up in the market before entering a trade. For example, if you are focusing clearly or solely on price action, you might have a criteria that involves price getting to a demand zone. It must get to that demand zone, and then you must find a bullish candlestick pattern before you enter a buy. So you must ensure that such things show up before you enter a buy. Then in the case of a sell, you might say that price must get to a supply zone, and then you must see a sell, or rather a bearish candlestick pattern before entering that sell. So you ensure that checklist happens before you enter the sell. You could also use indicators. There are different strategies that you can use for scalping, even supply and demand scalping inclusive, right? So if your strategy involves indicators as well, you might have some specific indicators that needs to, fulfill one condition or another before you enter a trade. So just ensure that your checklists are properly checked, right, before you enter a trade. All right. Now, just to recap, supply and demand scalping is all about identifying key zones, right? And then waiting for price to revisit and executing precise entries with tight risk management. Now, it's simple but powerful at the same time. Okay, it's an approach that works across all time frames and currency pairs. However, because you were scalping, so you might want to be focusing on small time frames like the 1 minute, 5 minute, and 15-minute charts. Okay, if you found this strategy helpful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more actionable trading content like this. And don't forget to drop a comment below. All right, let me know if you're already using supply and demand in your trading, or if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I wish you a profitable trading.